The undercover police operation was intended to nail Kenny Noy. But now, one member of the team, John Fordham, lay dying in an ambulance.
We got to the hospital, and of course John was whisked off, which was the last time I saw him. And I went into a room and just waited, and lots of people started to turn up, you know, my colleagues, and all waiting. We were waiting to hear how John was, and eventually we were told he died, he was dead.
When John Fordham was killed that night, I knew that this was the end of any chance we ever had of recovering any of the gold. I thought that part of the BRINKS robbery died, or investigation died, with John, frankly.
The death of John Fordham now forced police to move in and arrest as many members of the gold chain as possible. Garth Chappell was charged in Bristol and his crude smelting operation removed for forensic tests. Back in Kent, Kenneth Noy was charged with murder and placed in the custody of Scotland Yard.
Right from the word go, my first meeting with him, he extended his hand to shake mine and revealed that he was a Freemason. I took it to mean that he was looking for a fellow Mason and he was looking for help. His demeanour was of a person that was looking for ways out. And in fact, this was an undercurrent throughout the interview.
The gold is nothing to what I've done, is it? I mean, what difference would it make if I told you about the gold?
He knew he was in serious trouble, but he thought he could get his way out of it in some way.
Won't make a difference, will it?
There was no deal to be done, as far as I was concerned. He killed a policeman. There was no way that anything could be done to his advantage, and so there was no deal to talk about.
When the story of Noy's arrest appeared in the press, the most surprised reader was Michael McAvoy. Not only did it seem that his gold was tied up with someone he'd never heard of, but the killing of a police officer had put his own plans in jeopardy. Noy's arrest posed a threat to Brian Perry too, but it wasn't the only one now facing him. His money laundering operation had been gathering pace throughout 1984, as cars full of cash were driven across Western Europe into Switzerland. But by pure coincidence, the day after Noy's arrest, something had happened to one of the couriers.
I can suffer Noy this and these other monkeys. Listen, Gordon, this is a big blow. This ain't no Swiss roll anymore, is it? It's more like Swiss cheese. It's full of holes.
Yeah, it's a problem.
The problem had been at Aachen, on the Belgian-German border, where a courier had been stopped by customs. It was a routine stop, but one of the officers felt there was something about the driver which merited a closer look.
Es handelte sich einen LKW-Fahrer und die Arme von dem Menschen waren tätowiert. Also insgesamt war ganz subjektiv der Eindruck halt da, dass etwas nicht stimmte.
Checks on the driver were run and the car was searched. In the boot and underneath the back seat were bundles of new 20 and 50-pound notes. In growing disbelief, the officers counted the money. The total came to £720,000. A note was made of the serial numbers, which on the 50-pound notes were consecutive, and which all began with the prefix A24. This information was telexed to the London offices of Interpol, where a further check was run by British officers.
Und nach einer gewissen Zeit, es ging also relativ schnell, wurde uns also mitgeteilt, dass alles negativ ist. Also die Personen lagen keine Fahndungshinweise vor, Fahrzeug war auch nicht irgendwie entwendet oder gestohlen. Und Ja, daraufhin mussten wir dann halt leider fahren lassen. Wir hatten also keine Handhabe, diese festzuhalten.
Well, I got the serial numbers. Some of them. And they know it's my car. He told him it was his life savings, didn't he?
Well, it's time to do some fucking Red Cross then.
Yeah, buy them.
What Perry's men did was to move all the money into an emergency holding account until it could be repatriated. The A24 notes didn't yet mean anything to the British police in January 1985 as they started to search Kenny Noye's house. A search that eventually yielded 11 bars of gold.
The gold had been melted, so it was impossible to identify it, but it was 11 gold bars and it did tally with the 11 gold bars that he'd previously purchased in Jersey.
Minute traces of gold were also found on the car of a courier and one of the black briefcases. Another discovery was an instructions leaflet for an Alcoza smelter which matched the machine that had been followed and lost by the police 12 months before. There was evidence too of Noye's satisfaction in being connected to the world's biggest robbery. A pencil mark circling the BRINKS mat entry in the Guinness Book of Records. But the most significant find of all were bundles of new £50 notes. They all had the same prefix, A24.
The Aachen border incident didn't really filter down to our inquiry for a few days because we hadn't had a big cash robbery in London, so Interpol sort of just sent back a reply saying no, there's been no big cash robbery, and left it at that. But eventually this filtered down to us and we thought, hang on, this is significant, you know. Whenever you found an A24 £50 note, you knew you're on to somebody who was involved with the BRINKS mat gold bullion robbery.
Kenny Noye's fate would ultimately be determined by these discoveries. But first, he had to face a murder trial. He would be defended at the Old Bailey by John Matthew QC. Despite the 11 stab wounds suffered by the dead policeman, Matthew was confident of an acquittal.
Any case which involves the death of a police officer, you always start 2 down to start with. But on the other hand, the evidence was such in that case that right from the outset, having seen the prosecution evidence, I was very satisfied that he had a legitimate self-defense. And we persuaded the judge to allow the jury to go down after court one evening in the dark to see the setup there and what this would have been like. And somebody was dressed up in that way and appeared from round the corner with the wind howling and the moon flitting through the trees, and I tell you, put the fear of God into everybody.
I think our only hope was that a jury would think that 11 stab wounds, or 10 or 11 stab wounds to the body, to John's body, was excessive. And that was the only real hope we had.
On December the 12th, 1985, the Old Bailey jury was ready with its verdict.
Not guilty.
Yes! God bless you all. For that is what I am. Not guilty.
Noye was to remain in custody until his next trial for handling stolen bullion. While he was there, Scotland Yard's search for the gold went on, a search that now took on an astonishing twist. The Home Office had decided to back Michael McAvoy's proposal to trade his share of the gold for a reduced sentence. What was needed now was someone on the outside to organise the actual handover. McAvoy chose Tony White, a man who had already been acquitted of the BRINKS mat robbery. White was asked to meet Roy Ram at the South Bank.
Tony White looks like the stereotypical film extra of a robber. He's a heavy. He's not the brains behind the robbery. And the idea of Tony White being the chief negotiator for Mickey McAvoy was almost ridiculous.
That was why White invited a friend along to the meeting. The friend was Brian Perry. The message brought by these two men came as a complete shock to the police.
As I said, it's been dealt for, you know.
Hang on a sec, Tony. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's been traded.
You mean you've done a deal for it, in other words? Eh? It's all gone. It's been converted into cash.
It's doubtful. I mean, Mickey thinks he's in control of it. But he ain't.
Listen, it's no good being there trying to keep everything yourself, right?
Perry was more articulate, more confident, equally uncomfortable. And once Perry started talking, White took a back seat. You know, he would only interject to kind of emphasise how difficult it was and how detached McAvoy had become from what was going on the outside.
Once that cell door's closed, what's he got to trade with? If he ain't got possession, he's in trouble. Well, this is it.
Perry came with a single message, and the message was that McAvoy was out of touch, and he was saying to us that, you know, whatever Mickey thinks, whatever Mickey says, you know, he's lost it, he's not there. Perry said to us, what trading can you do when the cell door slams shut? Him saying that to us was very significant.
Have a nice day. Thanks, James. See you later.
The meeting had been an education for the police. Suddenly Brian Perry was in the frame. It was an education for McAvoy too. When Ram told him who'd been there, he was amazed.
Perry? What's Perry doing there? Well, Mickey, don't ask us, you know, these are your people. You tell us what Perry was doing there. And I think that's when we realised that he had lost control, because, you know, he wasn't even sure who was there supporting White at the meeting.
Hello, mate. Well, you read the last letter and you know what it is we were told by the police. I don't know what's going on here, but I hope for my peace of mind you'll tell me. It's our share we're talking about, and with you and Fatty out there should be no one thinking he can hold us up in here. For over a year now, I have not settled because of what I am told, and that really is enough with 25 years to handle. If I have to have that, I will. But what I want is for you to make sure we are not fucked and the game is played. It seems someone's getting a lot of interest. I won't have anyone else keeping my share for their own needs.
He'll be signing his own death warrant to go through with it. And if he believes that we are away too long to worry about it, well, it will be done for me.
I have no intention of being fucked for my money here, and still do this sentence.
Give my love to your family, mate. Take care. All the best. Mickey.
Here is this guy who clearly put together the work, took these guys on a successful robbery. Here he is sitting in prison facing 25 years. Here are people on the outside who've done very nicely, thank you. Not being asked to give up their share, just being asked to give up his share that they're looking after for him, and they won't deliver. And they're saying, do your bird, the door's shut.